Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to set the context. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say anything on the salient features of the budget because all of you all have heard the budget being read, and then दो तीन दिन से आप मीडिया में भी पढ़ रहे हैं बहुत सारे आर्टिकल्स वगैरह फीचर्स के ऊपर. सो अगर कुछ प्रश्न है वो उसके ऊपर जवाब भी हम सब देंगे, मगर कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बताना चाहती हूँ. पिछले 3-4 साल से हर साल बजट पेश होने के बाद हम पूरे भारत देश में मतलब 4-5-6 जगह पर जा कर के बजट आउटरीच प्रोग्राम करते हैं, जिसमें इंडस्ट्री, बिजनेस, ट्रेड, कम्युनिटी, टैक्स एक्सपर्ट्स, ऑडिटर्स सब उस मीटिंग में रहते हैं और बजट के ऊपर उनके जो भी प्रश्न है उसका हम क्लैरिफिकेशन या जवाब देते हैं. उसको उससे निकले हुए सुझावों को भी हम लेते हैं और जहां पॉसिबल हो वहां उसको फाइनेंस बिल के डिस्कशन के समय अमेंडमेंट के तहत ऐड भी करते हैं. सो इस श्रृंखला में इस साल बजट पेश करने के बाद पहला विजिट आउटसाइड ऑफ दिल्ली, जैसे पिछले 3-4 बार भी हुआ, मुंबई में फर्स्ट मीटिंग आउटरीच हुआ है. आज अच्छा सा इंटरेक्शन हुआ मुंबई के इंडस्ट्री और चेंबर्स ऑफ कॉमर्स के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव, टैक्स एक्सपर्ट्स, कंसल्टेंट्स वगैरह के साथ. पूरे मंत्रालय के अधिकारीगण सब थे, सब उनमें भाग लिए. यही है कॉन्टेक्स्ट और बजट के विषय में चर्चा. सो कॉन्टेक्स्ट यही है प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस का भी. इसीलिए आई ओपन अप and leave ma'am to organize how we want you, how you want us to answer.
मैं पहले CNBC के यश को बोलती हूँ, आप क्वेश्चन पूछ लीजिए. यश.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and the entire team. I'm Yash from CNBC TV 18. First of all, I just want to congratulate the entire team on delivering a budget which is being very well received. My question is on certain announcements which have come for the insurance sector. And I will try to encapsulate my question so that in one go it can be answered. First question is, we are at a time when the regulator, insurance regulator, the industry is trying to increase insurance sale and penetration. At this point, what we've received is taxation on high-ticket long-term savings policy. Do you think this could come in the way of increasing insurance penetration? Second question is on taxation on insurance policies. We have GST also on these long-term policies, and you've said at the time of maturity, they will be taxed. Could we not have a single tax? Do these both taxes have to exist? And one final question, ma'am. Why did we not look at an LTCG kind of taxation on these policies? Why does it have to be your income and not LTCG, just like we have in other investments? Thank you so much.
I'll certainly have the respective secretaries answer in specific. I just want to give a little bit of an introduction to the way in which we look at taxation. In this specific case, tax is being levied on annual premium, which is over a certain number. If just the premium is 5 lakh or more in a year, insurance penetration, as I imagine, is to deepen the penetration or deepen the insurance cover available for India and accessible for Indians. First of all, the idea of penetration and the potential that exists in India for insurance is that majority of our population is still not yet completely covered. And therefore, in this context, if a premium is being paid at 5 lakhs or more, and if tax is levied on them, it is not on the back of 5 lakh per annum premium, one person, that penetration can happen. I'm sure you get where I'm coming from. I want 5 lakh and more premium also, let them also have many more such. I have no problem. The restriction is not being brought in. No restriction is being brought in. We're not saying you can't take one more insurance. Even this person can take one more insurance if he wants. But it should also cover others. But if you're able to pay that kind of an amount for a premium, what would be your salary? So please also look at it from that point of view than conflating two different things. Inflation, insurance deepening. It's not going against insurance deepening. We want more people to get covered. But let's also be looking at some other factors which go into it. If the premium that you're paying is this much, what is your salary? So let's also look at it. So don't conflict two things which are not at odds with each other. Both can be simultaneously exist. But for more details on the second or the third that you've asked, yes, Somnath.
I will start and Mr. Malhotra will supplement what I say. I'll give you the intent behind the proposal as Honorable Finance Minister has very clearly set out. Any term insurance policy of any value. So what is insurance? Insurance is meant to be insurance. So if it is insurance, it remains tax-free, even if the sum assured is any number, however high it is. So this is not targeting insurance qua insurance. It is targeting investments which come in the garb of insurance, and that too very high value policies. Typically, the policies that we are talking about have a sum assured exceeding 1 crore is the kind of policy, depending of course on age and medical condition and so on. Secondly, we have credible information, evidence that this is becoming a tax avoidance device where people are using the clothing of insurance to obtain high tax-free incomes. The government's policy is, as enunciated by the Finance Minister in this budget speech very clearly, is to have lower marginal rates but higher coverage and fewer places to hide. So this is basically an anti-evasion measure. And Mr. Malhotra will add.
So you have summed it up very well. And in fact, ma'am, I was very happy that, we didn't get this question from the insurance sector, which was present there. This question again, is coming from the journalists. So I really do not, so I feel, that they understand the intent, and that's why, they never raise this question. They raise questions, related to clarifications, etc., related to that, related to insurance. Coming to GST, let's keep in mind that there is GST, whenever you buy other capital goods. Whether you buy real estate, whether you buy gold, there is a GST there. And then you also pay a capital gains tax, when there is a capital appreciation. So why, the special dispensation for insurance? I hope that answers the question.
Mr. Ram Kumar from the Hind.
They will coexist. And I add one more point. For insurance penetration, the government has done something very big. There are two policies which are available, which are so cheap that every citizen can, without batting an eyelid, give a direct debit mandate, which is the Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana and the Suraksha Bima Yojana. That is the main means of insurance penetration for those who cannot afford insurance. So I think the two should not be conflated, as Finance Minister said.
Mr. Ram Kumar.
In FY22 budget, you had announced about, taking two public sector banks, on the privatization path. So just wanted to understand how far you have moved down that path. Is there any update on that, or whether you have dropped that proposal?
There's no update on that.
Sorry?
There's no update on that, which means I've answered the other two questions as well.
Shishir.
धन्यवाद मैम। मेरा सवाल टैक्सेशन से है। दरअसल इस वक्त अगर देश में देखा जाए तो दो टैक्सेशन रिजीम है, एक पुरानी एक नई, जबकि दोनों में प्रावधान है। एटीसी के तहत अगर देखा जाए ओल्ड टैक्स रिजीम है, तो इस वक्त सरकार ने जो नई टैक्स रिजीम है उसमें भी हमने देखा कि किस प्रकार से जो टैक्स जो है कम किया गया, तो दोनों से फ़ायदे लोगों को मिल रहे हैं। सरकार की इसकी पीछे की मंशा क्या है कि दो टैक्स रिजीम इस वक्त देश में है, पहला सवाल। और दूसरा ये कि आखिर कब तक ये दो टैक्स रिजीम कंटिन्यू रहेगी, इसके ऊपर कोई टाइमलाइन सुनिश्चित की है या नहीं?
नहीं, कोई टाइमलाइन सुनिश्चित नहीं किए, और दोनों में बहुत अंतर है, दोनों टैक्स रेजिम में। मगर टैक्स एसएससी का चॉइस है पुराने में रहना है या नया में आना है.
Shahab.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Shahab. I'm from Inqilab Urdu, Delhi. My question is, funds for the mandatory schemes have been reduced by 38% as compared to last year. So many students used to get benefit from these funds. Now, this reduction wouldn't mean difficulty for them to pursue education.
I don't think there is a net reduction in the assistance being given to the students. It is now being given through different other platforms or departments. Like for higher education, it is now going through the UGC, and for primary and other secondary education, it is going through a different route. So there's no totally any reduction in it, but the routes are different, and anything that is done as regards minority affairs departments allocations is done entirely on the recommendation of that concerned ministry. So there is no cutouty from the point of view we don't have money to give or anything of that kind. What comes from the ministry, particularly in this case, what came from the ministry is what was agreed upon.
Anurag.
नमस्ते मैम, मैं अनुराग ईटीना सुदेश से. मैम अभी जो सवाल में बताया कि क्योंकि जो लाइफ इंश्योरेंस से जुड़ा हुआ ऐलान हुआ है बजट में, उसमें इंश्योरेंस कंपनियों ने एक मेमोरेंडम तैयार किया है और वो अगले हफ्ते आपको पेश करने का सोच रहे हैं, जिसमें वो ट्वीक की लिमिट 5 से 10 लाख करना चाहते हैं. तो आप उसको साफ कर रही है कि उसका कोई मतलब नहीं है, उन्हें नहीं करना चाहिए.
वो हमें मिला नहीं है, उसके ऊपर मैं कैसे बात करूं?
हाँ मैम, तो वही
क्योंकि आप बोल रही हो.
नहीं, उन्होंने ऑन रिकॉर्ड बोला है.
नहीं, ऑन रिकॉर्ड किसने बोला, कहाँ बोला है? वो ऐसे रिप्रेजेंटेशन है. जब रिप्रेजेंटेशन आएगा तब देखा जाएगा, हमारी जवाब तब मिलेगा. अभी नहीं मिलेगा.
ओके मैम, दूसरा सवाल है जो पीएसयू जनरल इंश्योरेंस कंपनियां हैं उसको लेके हैं, क्योंकि हम देख रहे हैं कि उनका जो मार्केट शेयर है लगातार घटता जा रहा है. इस साल मुमकिन है कि पीएसयू जनरल इंश्योरेंस कंपनियों का जो ओवरऑल मार्केट शेयर है वो 30% तक भी आ जाएगा, उससे नीचे आ जाएगा. तो उसको लेकर क्या सरकार की रणनीति है? क्योंकि हमने पिछले कुछ सालों में देखा है कि पहले लिस्टिंग की योजना थी, फिर मर्जर की योजना थी. अब 2 साल पहले वाले बजट में एक कंपनी के प्राइवेटाइजेशन के बारे में कहा गया था. तो वहाँ के जो कर्मचारी हैं उनके अंदर काफ़ी असमंजस की स्थिति. और अब जो आप नया इंश्योरेंस अमेंडमेंट बिल लेके आ रहे हैं जहाँ पर कंपोजिट लाइसेंस है वो भी दिया जाएगा, जिसमें लाइफ इंश्योरेंस कंपनी नॉन लाइफ के प्रोडक्ट बेच पाएगी. तो क्या हम माने कि आगे चल के जो सरकार जो है, जो एक ही इंश्योरेंस, जैसे आपने कहा भी ये नॉन स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर के अंदर एक ही कंपनी है, तो सारी जो कंपनियां हैं उसको एक तौर पे भी देखा जा सकता है?
आप बहुत विस्तार से प्रश्न पूछे. मेरा जवाब एक जवाब होगा, मगर उसको आप हर एक आपके क्वेश्चन में जितने भी विविध अंश है उसके लिए तोड़ मोड़ नहीं करना.
नहीं,
ठीक है. मैं ये स्पष्ट करना चाह रही हूँ कि इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर रिलेटेड प्राइवेटाइजेशन या मर्जर एक्विजिशन जैसे आपने अच्छा सा वर्णन किया, पता नहीं वो वर्णन कहाँ से निकलता है. सरकार तो पॉलिसी एग्जैक्टली 2 बजट के पहले 21-22 बजट में स्पष्ट प्राइवेटाइजेशन पॉलिसी, पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस पॉलिसी के द्वारा स्पष्ट की. उसको अगर आप पढ़ेंगे तो इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर को कैसे हम डील कर रहे हैं वो स्पष्ट निकल कर आएगा. उससे आप सच्चाई को जोड़ना चाहिए, ना कि जैसे आपने वर्णन किया. मुझे तो वो पता नहीं कहाँ से वर्णन है, मैं रिलेट कर नहीं पा रही हूँ उसको, क्योंकि सरकार में जो हम रिलेट करते हैं वो पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस पॉलिसी जो बजट में 21-22 बजट में बोला गया. सो मैं आपसे एक रिक्वेस्ट करती हूँ, बिकॉज आप इतना अध्ययन करते हो इंश्योरेंस के ऊपर, वो पीएससी पॉलिसी को अध्ययन करो, उसके ऊपर आप भाषण भी दो. आप अच्छा भाषण देते हो.
अजय रामनाथन.
Good morning. So my question is with regard to specific amendments that are mentioned towards Banking Regulation Act and other financial regulations. So I wanted to know what are the areas that are being looked at as far as amendments are concerned.
Will you please repeat your question?
So there is being put forth that the Banking Regulation Act and other financial regulations will be looked at and specific amendments will be made. So what are the areas that are being focused on?
I'm not sure through media, especially when the parliament is in session, I'm going to be discussing amendments to the bills that I'm bringing in. That will be absolutely improper. So I'll ask you to wait till such a time that gets spoken about in the House.
एकता
गुड आफ्टरनून मैम, एकता सूरी फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस। मैम आपसे सबसे पहले मैं ये पूछना चाहूँगी कि बहुत से लोगों ने वेलकम किया है नए टैक्स रिजीम को, लेकिन इसके अलावा बहुत से ऐसा सेक्शन भी है जो क्रिटिसाइज कर रहा है ये कहते हुए कि क्या ये डिस्करेज करेगा सेविंग्स को बहुत से सेक्टर्स में, जैसे कि इंश्योरेंस। और इसके अलावा मैम ये भी पूछना चाहूँगी, आरबीआई पॉलिसी अगले हफ्ते आ रही है और इन्फ्लेशन डेटा जो है वो कहता है कि बहुत इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल में आ गया है। आपको लगता है कि क्या हम रेट के पीक हाइक पर हैं या अभी और एक्सपेक्टेड है? और तीसरा सवाल मैम ये कि बीपीसीएल और कॉन्कर का डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट कब तक होगा?
I'm trying to keep my mind alert so
Sure,
that I'll
sorry.
follow, but 3-4 will be a bit too much. Your first question was?
मैम ऑन न्यू टैक्स रिजीम दैट
Yes,
बहुत
wait.
Yes.
The old system exists even now. Savings को discourage कर रहे हैं? नहीं, please, you please stay in that, because it's encouraging you. Encouragement or discouragement is the assessee's perception. Sarkar के intent very clearly, like the very many recommendations which have come over the decades on simplifying direct tax, उस simplification के रास्ते में second regime, taxation का regime आया। अगर आपको लगता है कि मुझे इंसेंटिव मिलना चाहिए मेरा परिवार के लिए, मैं सेव करने के लिए और इंश्योरेंस स्कीम में आने के लिए, आप रह जाओ भैया ओल्ड सिस्टम में। कौन आपको इधर जबरन लेके आने के लिए कोशिश कर रहे हैं? नहीं। सो व्हाई इज दिस नरेटिव particularly? I mean, you're welcome to ask any question because you're media, but what is this narrative building on? सरकार सेविंग्स को डिस्करेज कर रही है। भैया प्लीज यू स्टे देना, टेक ऑल द इंसेंटिव, बट ये भी मन में रहना चाहिए कि ये यहाँ सेकेंड स्कीम, न्यू स्कीम में रेट टैक्स का कम है और उधर ज्यादा है। सो एक तरफा हम इंसेंटिव, आई एम नॉट कॉलिंग इट इंसेंटिव, बट एक तरफा हम इंसेंटिव दें, प्लीज सेव हियर, पुट इंश्योरेंस, बट आई विल टेक अ हाई टैक्स फ्रॉम यू। अगर आप मंजूर है तो उधर रह लो, मगर यू वांट लेसर टैक्स and more money in your hand, you come to this one. And more money in your hand because उतना tax कम pay कर रही हो। मैं मानती हूँ as a adult, as a earning adult, as an adult who is taking care of his or her family, you will be the best person to choose where you want to put your money. So इसमें incentive, disincentive की बात ही नहीं है, a simple tax structure with better, convenient and suitable rates.
And my
Second question.
And my second question was on RBI policy
Yes.
जो अगले हफ्ते है।
Again, I think even while addressing the industry and professionals, I said this. Industry is not asking this question. And I think it's completely a matter which the RBI is seized of, and I'm sure they'll take an appropriate call.
And मैम कॉन्कर एंड बीपीसीएल
No, the second हो गया है. चलो we move on.
समीर भी से
मुंबई सबसे ज़्यादा टैक्स देता है, लेकिन बार बार पॉलिटिशियंस की ओर से आगे कहा जाता है कि जितना मुंबई को मिलना चाहिए, महाराष्ट्र को मिलना चाहिए, वो नहीं मिल पाता। फिर
कौन तय करता है इसको?
यस, तो आप इसके बारे में कुछ स्पष्टता
नहीं
दें।
नहीं, मैं आपसे एक बार मेरा मन में स्पष्टता होने दो जी। ये कौन तय करता है कि मुंबई इतना देती है सो मुंबई के लिए इतना मिलना चाहिए? मुंबई इतना देती है, मुंबई को मिलना चाहिए, फिर अकोला क्या करेगा, औरंगाबाद क्या करेगा? महाराष्ट्र के अंदर ही मैं बात कर रही हूँ। हाँ, नांदेड़ क्या करेगा, रायगढ़ क्या करेगा? पूरे मुंबई को दे दो, ठीक बात है, आपका लॉजिक हो सकता है। देश ऐसे नहीं चलते। देयर इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली डिटरमाइंड बॉडी जो 5 साल के एक बार मिलती है, फाइनेंस कमीशन तय करती है कहाँ कितना डिवल्यूशन होना है। उस फॉर्मूला के तहत हम स्टेट्स को पैसा देते हैं। मान लीजिए हर स्टेट में अगर एक शहर ऐसे डिमांड रखता है कि हमारे ही पैसा ज़्यादातर चलती है, स्टेट में भी एक प्रांत डेवलप होगा, बाकी सब प्रांत चुपचाप बैठना पड़ेगा।
Can I add a small clarification? ये मैं एक स्टैटिस्टिकल स्पष्टीकरण देना चाहूँगा आपको। मुंबई से टैक्स कलेक्ट होता है, लेकिन स्टेट, मान लीजिए स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, उनका 15,000 ब्रांच है पूरा भारत में, उसका पूरा इनकम टैक्स यहाँ से भरता है। उसका मतलब नहीं है कि पूरा अर्निंग मुंबई में हुआ है। मैं एक स्टैटिस्टिकल स्पष्टीकरण दे रहा हूँ।
एस बालकृष्णन।
Ma'am, yesterday the finance secretary, he said that the Adani controversy is a storm in the teacup.
No, just 1 minute. मैं ज़रूर आपके हर प्रश्न को जवाब दूंगी। पहले बजट के विषय में खत्म करें, बाद में बजट के अलावा विषय में आएंगे।
Thank you.
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ryosuke Hanada from Nikkei, Japanese newspaper agency, and I would like to ask about the expenditure regarding Global South. So last month, Indian government hosted the Voice of the Global South Summit, and I personally assume that India continuously expected to take the initiative in that area. So in that sense, how the new union budget can support this kind of initiative in the India's diplomacy in financial aspect?
Not just this budget, but even earlier budgets have always been understanding of the requirement of the Global South. Most of our taxation policies have also been influenced by the need to support Global South. I remember quite some time ago, 7, 8 years ago, we confirmed the policy for quota-free, tariff-free trade with these countries. So when you talk of quota-free, tariff-free, any import into India coming from these largely Global South countries would receive a treatment with no restriction on quota of amounts which come in, the quantum which comes in, or any tariff will be laid on them. So that was one of the ways in which we sustained. Similarly, we have lines of credit given through which many of these countries' basic infrastructure gets built. I'm not saying India is the only country which offers it, but India does offer it. And India offers it to many of these countries in the South, Global South. That's a second. And in fact, there was a time when some kind of a comparison was being made. We are one of the largest, if not the largest, we are one of the top 5 countries which support Global South in terms of favorable credit being, lines of credit being operated so that they can build their infrastructure. Second. Third, I'm not sure, I don't want to tread on an area on which I'm going by your name, but if you're from Japan or anywhere near Japan, you'll understand there was a time when Japan used to receive a lot of assistance, but equally at the very same time as it was receiving a lot of assistance, it would also support countries through what we call line of credit, grants given to countries which required grants from Japan. So a country like Japan receiving assistance from other countries for its own development at that very same time also extended assistance to many other countries which so required. So India today actually is in that kind of a situation. It may receive funds from World Bank, ADB and so on for its developmental activities as much as it also supports countries from the Global South through various such means. So other than this, there are also government-to-government supplying of goods, sharing of items like vaccines, and so on. So Global South is something which is not just happened today when we are becoming the president for G20. It's a tradition that India has maintained, and we actively support it even today. Anything else?
I'll just very specifically say that the budget does have provisions for the ECGC, which is our Export Credit Guarantee Corporation, and there are a number of initiatives in the External Affairs Ministry also in line with the Global South initiatives which are funded in the budget.
Ajay, you want to say anything?
Ankur.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Ankur Mishra. I'm representing ET now. Ma'am, while in the budget, you have given an option between choosing an old tax regime or new tax regime. I want to ask you, as an intent from government, do you see that any of the policies, if somebody is buying, be it insurance or any other investment, it should be based on those policies, not just as an incentive? That is first. Another question, ma'am, I want to ask regarding cryptocurrencies. Now, this is something where Reserve Bank of India has many times given warning regarding cryptocurrencies, while there has also been some discussion regarding the regulation of cryptocurrencies. I understand G20 meeting is with the finance ministers and other governors are there. Will it be part of the discussion, and what is government's view on that?
I'll take the second question on the cryptocurrency. The technology, whether we take as blockchain or distributed ledger technology, can have several use cases, several applications. In extreme cases, use that as a currency. And there was a very little wind or a consensus that it has a potential to be used as a currency. Nobody is talking about it. But its uses in financial sector, more than the financial sector, in the non-financial sector, this technology can have several applications. But at the moment, that technology, for fair amount of it, is tied with a token. The moment it is tied up with the token, then there has to be a trade in that token and what the applications are. So the attempt at the global level, including in India, is how do we let that technology have its own play, find its own applications. At the same time, while the technology is getting developed, if it is creating any risk, how to manage those risks, how to regulate those risks. So in India, nobody is talking about use it as a currency, is a crypto asset. And when it comes to the G20 meeting, yes, in Bangalore meeting, which will happen later part of this month, there's a full seminar is being kept to deliberate on the issues, on the implications, and how to move forward. And during the course of the year, in subsequent meetings also, deliberations will happen. What should be the policy approach and what should be the balance regulations, which broadly the country should follow or adopt.
Rakesh Trivedi.
1 minute, ma'am.
On your first question, I think the finance minister already answered it in terms of leaving the citizen the choice of which savings instruments to use based on their inherent pros and cons. And if they wish to choose them based on tax incentives, they still have the right to do so because that option is still open. So they can make their own informed choices so that investments stand or fall on their inherent merits and not on the crutch of a specific tax deduction only for that instrument.
Good afternoon, Honorable Finance Minister.
1 minute, 1 minute.
Actually, on this particular question which keeps coming back, it's important to realize that the range of options given to taxpayers has been expanded. Earlier, the government was directing them in a way indirectly to put money here, you put money there, and then you will get these benefits. Now they're saying you can do so if you want to still do that. But if you also want to pay less taxes and have more money in your hands and decide what you want to do, that is also available to you. So with this provision of a new tax regime, citizens have been given expanded choices. It is not that they are being asked to save in a particular direction or particular instrument. So this should be welcomed as in a democracy, citizens have been given more choice rather than less. So that is the way to look at this new and old tax regimes being there.
Amol Dethe.
Ma'am, Rakesh, pending, still pending. You take.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, ma'am. I understand the Parliament is in session and perhaps we will not speak about the banking amendment. But since you mentioned in the budget speech that to simplify and reduce the cost of compliance, the financial sector regulation will be requested to carry out a comprehensive review. If you could elaborate more on what kind of clarifications or specifications the Finance Minister is looking for financial regulators? And also, the economic survey had mentioned LIC, license inspection and compliance part, where we have seen 39,000 compliances have been reduced in the budget. If you could highlight maybe a few of them, we'll be really glad. Thank you.
If my attempt to your first part, this request should be seen in the context of the larger attempt by the government to make it easier for business to do what they are expected to do, as well as make it easier for common citizen to perform ease of living and ease of doing business. Government has taken a lot of initiative, has asked, mandated all departments, all regulators to go and reduce compliances. And there's a mention in the budget speech itself, close to about 40,000 compliances have been reduced in the past 4 years. Several laws have been decriminalized. Part of that exercise, some of the regulators had also done it. Very recently, last year, Reserve Bank of India, after 20 years, they did a very comprehensive review and they came out with a report in early part of 2022. So taking that narrative forward, that is a time to look at whatever are doing, not just the regulator, but government department, they're already doing that activity. Have a comprehensive review of the regulations and other activities, how that one interacts with the regulated entities as well as general public, make it easier, where the regulations required to be tweaked, they need to be improved upon, made simpler, reduce the cost of compliance. That's an effort, and which is in that direction, they will do that review. It is not that government has any role. It is a request to them, and it is a request what gets mandated to government department. Government departments are also doing that activity.
Last two questions.
Yes.
Sorry, ma'am, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think the survey does talk about the fact it is not just in the budgets. Over the years, this many number of compliances have been removed, and as Secretary pointed out, laws have been, obsolete laws have been removed. And what we are saying is, whatever the union government has done over the last 8 years in terms of removing obsolete laws and removing unwanted compliances, and in many cases moving towards self-certification, etc., have to diffuse down to local governments and state governments as well. For example, the Companies Act 2013, many provisions have been decriminalized over the last couple of years. Similar such provisions in state legislations also have to happen, so that by and large, micro and small enterprises do get the bandwidth to focus on management and business issues and not so much on compliance issues. This is an ongoing exercise, and we have provided the statistics, and if you want later on we can give you the details of what all have been done. But the idea is to continue the thrust at all levels of the government, not just at the union government level. Thank you.
राकेश.
गुड आफ्टरनून ऑनरेबल फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, मैं राकेश त्रिवेदी टाइम्स नाउ नवभारत चैनल से हमारे दर्शकों के लिए एक आसान भाषा में एक बहुत ही साधारण सा सवाल आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं, और ये सवाल है होम लोन के बढ़ते इंटरेस्ट रेट्स को लेकर के, जो खास तौर से अर्बन मिडिल क्लास पॉपुलेशन के लिए काफ़ी बढ़ती हुई चिंता की एक बात बन रही है। इसको लेकर के इस दिशा में उन्हें राहत कब तक, कैसे, कितनी मिल सकती है, इस पर आपका जवाब जानना चाहता हूँ।
मैं इसके बारे में यही कहना चाहूँगा कि अगर आप होम लोन रेट्स की बात करते हैं पिछले 10 वर्षों में, तो आप देखिए कि वो काफ़ी कम हुए हैं, बहुत कम हुए हैं। पहले 12% की रेंज में रहते थे, और आज के दिन में जो है वो ठीक है, पहले जो है 7% से भी कम हो गए थे, तो अब वो 7% से थोड़ा बढ़ गए हैं। तो ये मामूली उतार चढ़ाव जो है होता रहेगा, लेकिन मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि लॉन्ग टर्म में यदि हम देखते हैं तो निश्चित रूप से ये ट्रेंड डाउनवर्ड है, और वो डाउनवर्ड ही रहेगा।
थैंक यू।
सिद्धि.
Hi, ma'am. First of all, congratulations on the budget. Really feels great to see a woman at the helm. Ma'am, my first question is on the fiscal deficit target that you have envisioned for FY26. If you could throw some light on what is the plan from the government's end to bring it down to those levels, any strategy that you're having. If you could answer that, then I'll move on to the second, with your permission. Okay. Okay, second. Okay. My second question is, ma'am, on the Adani Group.
Okay.
What are the...
Then you'll wait.
Yeah, okay.
So the commitment to reach below 4.5 has been reiterated. The strategy to reach it will involve a combination of 3 things. First, sustained high revenue growth with decent buoyancy. That is our strategy on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, sustained strict control over avoidable and unproductive expenditure, especially non-scheme revenue expenditure. And the third is through the various measures that have been taken in the budget to keep the denominator growing fast, so that the denominator of GDP grows fast. With this combination of buoyant revenue, strict control over avoidable expenditure, and a rapidly growing GDP, we think it is achievable.
Yeah. I would like to, ma'am, I would like to add to that. As Finance Secretary mentioned, 2 or 3 things: revenue buoyancy, expenditure control, and last point he mentioned was the economic growth, the denominator growing faster. In the chapter in Economic Survey on fiscal matters, we show that if there is a steady nominal GDP growth of 10%, which is not a very high number every year, that would bring about a meaningful reduction in the fiscal deficit and debt parameters. And that is what we hope to achieve. And the chances for that look very bright. Second, you must also take a look at the fact that the revenue deficit and the effective revenue deficits have come down much more than the headline fiscal deficit numbers, and that matters even more in terms of the indications it is showing about the quality of expenditure. So I think we should also move down from the headline towards other more important deficit parameters in the budget.
Okay, thank you. My second question is on the Adani Group.
Just one, ma'am. 1 minute, ma'am. Let's finish the rounds on budget. After that, I assure you will come. I'm not evading questions and answers.
Hi, good afternoon. My questions are related to infrastructure and energy. One, the national monetization pipeline. We have a target of 1.6 lakh crore to be met this financial year. So if you could take us through how much of that has been met, and would we be meeting that target by March end? And second, in your budget speech, you mentioned 35,000 crore rupees marked for net zero initiatives and energy security, largely related to the petroleum ministry. So would this be dedicated towards development of gas-related infrastructure, gas reserves? If you could explain where this money is to go to and what would be the timeline. Thank you.
Could you just say your name and your organization?
My name is Amrita. I work for Money Control.
Sorry?
My name is Amrita. I write for Money Control.
Okay.
I'll take up the first part on the asset monetization program. The target which was last year, more or less that was achieved. Even during the current year, the concerned PSUs which are handling it, they are on good track to reach closer to the target. But I would like to clarify that most of that asset monetization are being done by the government undertaking, NHAI, Power Grid Corporation, and so on. So money goes to them, and they use it to invest it further. So it's not that that amount is available to finance the budget, but that is very much on happening. But at the same time, the PSUs, based on the experience which they have seen for the past 2 years, they're looking for a model how they can monetize this asset, meaning the income stream which is coming up, how they can monetize that income stream is not necessarily through other AIF model. There can be other models also to get the future stream, income streams, to monetize it and make that amounts available for investment. Now,
on the petroleum sector, these are for two kinds of investments. First, some of the public sector refineries and other infrastructure facilities in the petroleum sector need retrofitting to meet our ambitious greening, emission and pollution targets. So that is one of the main aspects of this 35,000. The rest is for augmenting our strategic storage capacity. Petroleum storage capacity. Sorry? Petroleum related.
हेलो मैम, मैं राजेश कुमार हूँ इंडिया टीवी से। मैम, पर्सनल इनकम टैक्स के बारे में मैं एक बार और आपसे सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ। एक इस तरीके से पूछना चाहता हूँ कि एक पुराना घर था, उस घर में लोग ज़्यादा सुविधाओं की मांग कर रही थी ओल्ड टैक्स रिजीम में। आपने एक नया घर बनाया, यानी कि नया टैक्स रिजीम बनाया। आप लोगों को कोशिश कर रही हैं कि नए घर में लोग आए, लेकिन कई ऐसे लोग हैं जो पुराने घर में ही रहना चाहते हैं। आपने नए घर में अब इस साल AC भी लगा दिया, आपने उसके लिए अच्छी सड़क भी बना दी, RO भी लगा दिया, लेकिन पुराने घर में रहने वालों के लिए भी थोड़ी सुविधा देनी चाहिए थी, ऐसा लोग कह रहे हैं। मैम,
ठीक है, लोग कह सकते हैं, मगर पुराने मुंबई में रहने वाले को तो पुराने घर का हालात, कितने घर ऐसे डेंजरस परिस्थिति में है, उसको पुनर्निर्माण करना है तो उसको पूरे के पूरे नीचे कंप्लीटली डिसमेंटल करके नया बनाना, ऐसे रियलिस्टिक उदाहरण आपके मन में है। मुंबई वाले को मैं एक्सप्लेन करने का आवश्यकता नहीं है। पुराने घर का मेमोरीज भी अच्छा है, छोड़ना नहीं चाहते हैं हम, मैं मानती हूँ उसको भी, मगर पुराना घर अगर स्ट्रक्चरली वीक हो गया है, उसको कैसे हम बदलें, उसको कैसे अच्छा करना, ये भी सोचिए ना। कम से कम उसको आपको उसमें से निकाल करके विदाउट घर सड़क पर नहीं छोड़ रहे हैं, अच्छा सा एक स्कीम बना रहे हैं, अच्छा घर दे रहे हैं, और कंपल्सरी भी नहीं बोल रहे हैं कि स्ट्रक्चरली वीक है भैया, मगर ये भी है बोल रहे हैं, स्ट्रक्चरली वीक है आ जाओ इधर, ये भी नहीं कह रहे हैं। ठीक है
Are you asking about the budget? Okay.
मैम नमस्कार, मैं सौरभ पांडे जी बिजनेस से। हम आपसे समझना चाहेंगे कि आपने अपने बजट स्पीच के दौरान पी नोट्स का जिक्र किया था जो कि आईएफएससी के ज़रिए ट्रांजैक्ट होंगे। तो हम ये जानना चाहेंगे कि ऐसा क्या सिचुएशन आया कि अब दोबारा जो है हम इस ट्रांजैक्शंस के लिए जो है पी नोट्स का इस्तेमाल करेंगे।
देखिए जो गिफ्ट आईएफएससी का कल्पना है और जो जिस तरह से डेवलप करना है, they have to compete with other international financial centers. उनके साथ उन्हें compete करना है। वहाँ पर क्या रेगुलेटरी रजीम है, वहाँ पर क्या टैक्स का रजीम है, वो अगर हम वहाँ पर यहाँ पर अपने गिफ्ट सिटी में नहीं दे रहे हैं, गिफ्ट आईएफएससी में नहीं दे रहे हैं, वो नहीं compete कर पाएंगे। दुबई है, सिंगापुर है और उसका लंदन के साथ जो है। लेकिन साथ ही साथ चूँकि ये हमारा इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंशियल सेंटर है, तो इसमें हम रेगुलेशन उस हिसाब से बना सकते हैं कि जिससे अगर पी नोट पे कोई एक रिस्क आ सकता है तो उस रिस्क को कैसे हम अच्छी तरह मैनेज करें। किसी और बाहर के जुरिडिक्शन में उन्होंने जो रेगुलेशन बनाया, हम रेगुलेशन चेंज कराने के लिए नहीं जा सकते, लेकिन हम यहाँ पर वही चीज़ उस तरह का बिजनेस लाके और सही तरह से रिस्क को रेगुलेट कर सकते हैं। तो उस रिस्क को कैसे रेगुलेट करेंगे वो आईएफएससीए के रेगुलेशंस आएंगे अगले वाले समय में, आपको पता लगेंगे।
उसमें एक विषय मैं जोड़ना चाहती हूँ जो सेक्रेटरी साहब भी एग्री होंगे। जो विदेश में है ऐसे क्षेत्र, उससे कंपेयर करते हुए हम इधर भी उतना करने के लिए कोशिश कर रहे हैं। मगर जब विदेश में है क्षेत्र, उसके जिक्र जब हम करते हैं, वो टैक्स हेवन के क्षेत्र नहीं, वो रेगुलर अच्छा सा फिनेंशियल हब है। हम टैक्स हेवन से कंपेयर नहीं कर रहे हैं, तुलना नहीं कर रहे।
Very recently, the government brought certain amendments, which are certain important structural amendments in the insurance sector. The industry has been preparing, as we hear inputs, in terms of foraying into all those amendments and making changes. I want to understand would they have to wait beyond the budget session, or do you think there is a planning and the intent from the government to bring those amendments in the budget session itself?
Whatever intent of the government is on bringing amendments have been stated. I'm not restating them here.
Okay.
If there are no more budget-related questions, then we can take a few.
Yes.
Yesterday, the Finance Secretary, Mr. Somnathan, he said that the Adani controversy is only a storm in the teacup. Do you agree with this statement? If you don't, yes, what is your take on this humongous controversy?
You clarify.
I just want to be clear. I said in macroeconomic terms and in terms of stability of our public financial institutions, it is a storm in a teacup. And I stand by that.
No, my finance secretary is saying something to explain the macroeconomic situation. So as regards his statement, he's given his explanation. That's where I also say that he is given, hey, listen to me, much before I complete, don't go on rigmaroling it. You asked me for my view on his statement. He's given a clarification on his statement, not a clarification. He's repeating what he said yesterday, wherein you took one particular line. And that's where it ends.
Madam, my name is Sarfaraz Arzu.
That's where it ends.
My name is Sarfaraz Arzu and I am from Hindustan Urdu Daily. मेरा सवाल ये है कि आपने सरकार ने अनाउंस किया कि वोडाफोन आइडिया के 16,000 करोड़ रुपए के जो इंटरेस्ट ड्यूज हैं उनको इक्विटी में कन्वर्ट किया जा रहा है। तो ये तो ऐसा है कि बजाय सज़ा देने के आप उनको इनाम दे रहे हैं। और अगर ये चीज़ यहाँ अगर प्रेसिडेंट बनती है तो क्या आइंदा भी आप लोग इस चीज़ को दूसरी कंपनीज के लिए अप्लाई करेंगे?
नहीं, एक मिनट, आप शायद इस विषय का पूरा संज्ञान नहीं लिया, और मैं गलत अगर बोल रही हूँ प्लीज करेक्ट करिए। आप इसमें कंपनी का डेट को सरकार ले रही है, ये सही है कि नहीं, और ये प्रेसिडेंट बन जाएगा, बाकी सब फ्यूचर में ऐसे कंपनी आएगा उसको ऐसे ही ट्रीट करेंगे, इस रास्ते पर आ रही है आपके प्रश्न, सही है, मगर वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग में थोड़ा गलती है। मैं हम्बली कह सक रही हूँ कि प्लीज उनका डेट को हम नहीं ले रहे, वो जो सरकार को देना है,
ड्यूज की बात कर रहा हूँ।
हाँ, वो सरकार को जो देना है वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चलते, वो सब होने के बाद और कैबिनेट के अप्रूवल लेने के बाद आप कंपनी हमें जो हमारी ड्यू है वो दे नहीं पा रही हो इस कगार में, इसीलिए हम कंपनी का शेयर ले रहे हैं, मतलब कंपनी में हिस्सेदार हो गए हैं, जिससे व्हेन कंपनी कमाई बढ़ेगी हमारे अपने भी मिलेगा, यही तो हो रही है।
लेकिन मैडम कंपनी तो 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए से पहले वो पहले ही डेथ में है।
हाँ, एक मिनट।
No, I'll also, my Hindi is not that good, so if you can allow me, I'll speak it in English. It's okay. I can do it in Hindi also, but I'll do it better in English.
Whatever suits you, sir.
See, this is not a thing done to one company. A scheme was announced in September 2021, which was applicable to all telecom companies in the context of a Supreme Court judgment, which imposed a retrospective due which had not been accounted for by any of the telecom companies which came into this country before this AGR situation arose. So reliefs were given to every company. 2 sets of reliefs were given. All of them were given a moratorium if they wanted it. And that 4-year moratorium has been picked up by almost every telecom company in the country. Another option was given that you can either take the moratorium and pay the interest, or you can take the moratorium and convert your interest into equity, and this was offered to all companies. 3 companies picked it up. 2 of them later said they don't need the equity conversion option, but the moratorium option has been picked by every single one of the telecom companies because the AGR dues were not dues that arose in the normal course of business. It arose as a change of law. Actually, the Supreme Court's judgment came after a long period, and the amounts that you are referring to are arrears for an 18-year period, which every company has taken a moratorium on. So it is part of a package. The package has now been implemented in respect of the company that has come in now, but the package has already been implemented for several other companies in respect of several other elements in the same package. So it is not a one company thing, it is a package offered to all. Different companies have chosen different elements of that package. Whichever element each company has chosen has been given to that company in accordance with the cabinet.
But sir, this runs contrary to the idea that the government is not in the business of doing business.
Yeah, this is an exceptional situation. This is not, these shares will not be held by Ministry of Telecom. They'll be held by the Department of Investment Promotion and Asset Management as a minority holding in the manner that they still hold shares, for example, in ITC, in Axis Bank through the SUTI. So there are residual situations. When UTI was rescued, the government ended up holding shares in a number of private sector companies. So it is in that manner as a minority shareholding managed by the Department of Investment and Asset Promotion. It's not in any way a PSU or, I mean, first of all, even the stakes are much lower, but there is no intention of running it as it's an investment transaction.
And you know, that has been made clear that we will not have any board seat, will not have any management, we will be classified as public. We have obtained SEBI exemptions on that. The intent was this was a part of a rescue package. And these rescue package, if you recall, there have been instances earlier, whenever we had recoveries, you know, whenever you had, rehabilitation proposals. So it was a usual thing in many cases to convert the interest into equity. The bank used to do it as a normal course. Here the dues were not due to the banks, but due to the government. And the company was just not in a position to pay it. It was offered as a general course, as a sectoral package to give a relief to the industry. So now, you know, this is where the things are. So it's a question of, you know, supporting a sector. सर सवाल यहाँ पैदा ये होता है कि यू आर बाइंग 10 रुपए में वो शेयर खरीद रहे हैं जो 7 रुपए में मार्केट में है. No, I mean, there I would say the norm was very clear because the decision when it was taken, you know, that price has to be as per the law. The law says then any preferential issue, any conversion of loan in equity, minimum has to be at par value. So the government cannot violate a law.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Dev from India Today and Aaj Tak. Ma'am, while the micro situation question has been answered, just want to try and understand something. In wake of the FPO pullout and given the current situation, does India's position in the global financial markets get affected or does it get weakened in any way possible?
No, I don't think. Otherwise, how did our foreign exchange reserve grow? Was it 8 billion in the recent last 2 days? The foreign exchange reserve in the last 2 days has gone up by 8 billion. So our macroeconomic fundamentals or our economy's image, none of which has been affected. Yes, FPOs come in, FIs come out, get out. These fluctuations are there in every market. But the fact that we have had 8 billions come in this last few days proves that the perception about India and in its inherent strengths is intact.
Thank you.
So which scheme? Can you keep the mic closer?
Small savings.
For the small savings schemes.
Yeah.
But this, the interest rates on them are very close to what the banks are offering. So how confident are you of mobilizing that? And if it does succeed, like, wouldn't it crowd out bank deposits? And also a question on the TCS. What is the reason for increasing it on remittances from 5% to...
The two schemes, maximum limits have been increased for the senior citizens, and avenue has been opened up, rather doubled what they can invest. There the interest rate is 8%. So it is one, giving a helping hand to the senior citizens, and already they had a scheme, the limit has been increased. Similar manner, on monthly savings scheme, interest rate is 7.1%. Traditionally, small savings scheme, roughly about half percentage point, they give more than what is available in the market. Now the third scheme, or the new scheme which has been introduced for a 2-year period for Mahila Samman Bachat Patra, is 7.5% interest for a 2-year deposit. Banks at the moment are giving about 6.75 or 6.8 or 6.9%. It's again about half percent point to 0.6 percentage point. A small savings has always been to encourage smaller investors to put in money into an SSF.
Siddhi, last question. This is the last question.
Since this is the last question, I would want to ask you about the Adani Group.
Yes, I did say that I'll come back to you for you to ask that question. Please to ask. It may not be the last question. Somebody else might want.
Okay, sure.
You don't need to conclude it.
No, sure.
You're welcome. Hold on. You're welcome to ask your third question.
I wanted to ask you about what actions is the government taking so that this entire Adani issue does not snowball into a financial crisis and hurt the risk appetite of the economy. That's my first question, and if you could clarify.
Oh, I thought you had a second.
It's related
question.
to that.
Okay.
It's related to that. And if you could comment on the corporate governance issues from this particular entity that you're seeing.
Yeah, but on both the questions, it'll be the regulators who will do their job. You've had the Reserve Bank comment on it yesterday. And prior to that, not regulators, but the banks and the LIC have themselves come out to say what their level of exposure is. So the regulators will do their job. And regulators are independent of the government. And many of you all have repeatedly asked this question about RBI's independence and government not getting into it. I'd like to remind you all about that. They are regulators, and they are independent, and they are left to themselves to do what is appropriate. And actually, for keeping the market and the markets regulated well in prime condition, the SEBI is the authority, and it has the wherewithal to keep that prime condition intact. You've had a lot of clarification and you seem to have more. No, you will not put out what we have not said, right? But what is sought in the name of a clarification, I'm worried violates my rights as a parliamentarian when the session is on course. The same question being asked in different ways will not elicit an answer except for saying Parliament is in session I would like to honor the parliament, even if you ask me questions which will make me violate by answering it. So if you're conscious of that and you still want to repeat the question, please do. So how many times FPOs have not withdrawn from this country, and how many times has the image of India been suffering because of that? And how many times have the FPOs have not come back? No, my answer in the context of the question is given already. You may reread the question or rehear the question and place my answer in that context. Thank you,
everybody.